On there? Yeah. So welcome to today's Dhamma talk, just more on the meditation, and especially on dealing with all these thoughts which stop one from getting any peace. And yes, we can look at those thoughts afterwards and realize what a waste of time that was. How much thinking actually never solved any problems and just created more problems. And of course, we all know it would be wonderful if we think less and have more peace in our mind and more wisdom to allow our brain to rest. But how do we actually get there? How do we focus more on silence than on thinking? And of course, my first person you want to blame is your teachers at school. Because I remember, just sitting in class in primary school, and the teacher asked, "What do you think about that?" I said, "Nothing." And she said I was stupid. Why do you always have to think about something? Why do you always have to write things down and try and capture things in words? Can't we just leave it alone and enjoy it without giving it a name? And I remember being a physicist and being part of the Astronomical Society in Cambridge. There was a time when you knew all the constellations, you knew what that particular star was, whether it was a galaxy or what it was. And that meant every time I looked at the stars at night, I could give everything a name. And I realized, because by this time I was a monk, just how I was missing out. I couldn't just see the stars as they were. They were all names. And so, it took a while, but I deliberately unlearnt all their names. So I could just see the stars in the sky, see them as beautiful as they really are, instead of trying to know their names. I also remember from the time I was a kid that we used to have these fairy stories. And one of them, I think it was from Grimm's Fairy Tales or whatever it was, of this Rumpelstiltskin. And it was some demon, some little imp who had some powers. And I think that whoever it was could actually weave straw into gold, but after about 7 days she would have to be Rumpelstiltskin's mistress or something. And that was the deal, unless she could guess Rumpelstiltskin's name. And of course the story was how she found out his name. Because in those times, in just ancient European magic, if you had somebody's name, you had power over them. And that's like modern day Google. If they have your name and they have your email address or whatever, then they have power over you. They can check out exactly what you're up to, where you are. You have an understanding about this information, giving things names, locations, places. It actually controls people. So, it's wonderful when we don't name things. When we don't name things, we have to let them go. And the other little quote, which is in this same area and explains what I'm talking about. Somebody many, many years ago knew I was a scientist and asked me about a famous British scientist called Lord Kelvin. And for those of you who are engineers know that Lord Kelvin designed a much more logical scale of temperature. So 0 was absolute 0. You can't get lower temperature than that, because all temperature is things vibrating. This is when things actually stop, 0 degrees Kelvin. And so it was a logical temperature scale. Many people know that name by the temperature scale which he devised. But he was also the head of the Royal Society in London of scientists. And he famously said it was the start of the Industrial Revolution, the start of technology. And he famously said, if we want to control nature, we have to learn how to measure her accurately first. I don't know why I call nature her and not him. Pretty sexist, but we won't go there. So, it was a very powerful little saying. So that's why with technology, it was measuring, locating, weighing, getting everything accurate first of all. And from there, we could go on to this technological revolution. But the reverse of that was, what if you can't measure things or you don't measure things? If you want to control things, you have to measure them accurately first. So if you don't measure things, then you can't control them. You have to let them be. You've got no handle left to control and will and get somewhere when you let go of all measuring. And just to add a little bit of interest, the word for mind in Pali is mano, the mind sense, the sixth sense base. And the word for measure is maneti. It's what the mind does. So, imagine if you don't measure stuff, then you can't control, and then your mind fades away. It disappears. It's got nothing to do anymore. And that is the heart of thinking. We measure things. That was a good talk today. That was an awful talk today. And it wasn't a good talk. It wasn't an awful talk. It was just a talk. That's what we add onto things with our measuring, with our thinking. And there we get to the heart of the problem. But don't go thinking about it. I mean, you see, why don't you say something, people try and measure it. Oh, that's really deep, or that's nonsense. And we start thinking again. We are such addicted thinkers. We've been trained in that way, thinking we can control the world, control ourselves, be successful, be safe, if we think a lot about it. But I think many of you know that through thinking you have caused yourself so much sickness, so much agony, so much problems and trouble. And really, what's come down to thinking? All the things I thought about, they weren't really important anyway. Okay, the nature of the universe, what's that got to do, with whether you're peaceful in meditation or not? What's that got to do with whether you can pay the bills? What's that got to do with very much? So sometimes we think about the wrong things. And this is what the Buddha said, I'll come across it later on, about sort of not putting attention in the right areas, wrongly directed attention. Because what thinking does, it takes you out of this moment, takes you on and on to a fantasy which has never ended, no ending to it. Goes on and on. What is called in Pali is papancha, a conceptual proliferation. And that conceptual proliferation, it would be wonderful if it solved any problems, but all it eventually does, it just makes you tired. So there are problems in life. How are they solved? So first of all, I'm doing a sales job against thinking and promoting silence. You do have problems in life. You do have decisions to make. You do have big problems you've got to find answers for. But have you ever noticed when you think about it, you don't really get very far. You never find a really good solution. And that is where I come to one woman many, many years ago, when we had our retreats over in a place in North Perth. And like many people, they came to meditation because they were stressed out at their work. And so she had a very, very high stress job. She was in social welfare, and she got herself into the job to the person who would sign off whether a mother was not competent to look after her children, so that the children would be taken away to some care, orphanage or someplace. Maybe the family was dysfunctional, drunkard, sexual abuse, drugs. There comes a time when, it's worse for the child to stay with the mother. But, that's a very tough thing to do, to take a child away from its mum. And she had to be the one. Someone has to make that decision. Finally, she had to sign off on it. That's a really high stress. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you get it right. If you make mistakes, you ruin a lot of lives. So, with such a high-stakes job, she didn't arrive at the retreat, even though she worked really close by, lived close by, until, after midnight. Just ticking off all the jobs she could, tying up the loose ends, as they say. But of course, there is no end to loose ends. There's always some more to do afterwards. So some really, really difficult decisions she just left on her desk until 8 or 9 days later when she went back to work. And she needed a break. Her brain needed to clear so that she could make good decisions. And good on her, a wise person. She'd been listening to my talks a lot. That's what she did. She just relaxed, slept a lot in the first couple of days because her brain was exhausted, did some meditation, and then on one of her interviews, later on in the retreat, she came out to me and said, it's amazing that I was meditating, forgetting all about my work, not really bothering about it, really, really peaceful. When I came out of my meditation, all these answers, they just appeared to some of the most difficult problems which I have to face when I go back to work. And she said, it's amazing. I don't know where these answers came from. They just popped up. And they're brilliant answers. And so she wrote them down, put them aside so she could enact them when she went back to work the following Monday. And I often say that because it's the same with me. I have to make some difficult decisions sometimes. Whether I should have the muffin or the pancake. Can't have both, unfortunately. No, I mean, some really tough decisions. And so those decisions, you learn how to just let it be silent. Don't think about it. Let the answer come. And that's made me pretty successful as a monk, decision maker. But if you really worry about it, that worry just infects other people. They start to worry as well. And also you just don't get such good answers. So, whenever there is a decision to make, we don't think about it. We just learn how to get as much information as we can. So make good decisions. And then just leave it aside. Let the process happen. The subconscious, whatever you wish to call it, your little brain, your little computer is doing its calculations, working it all out, and then afterwards the answer pops up. Oh, yeah, that's a good answer. Similar to when you're trying to remember somebody's name. And you just can't get it until you just learn just to stop thinking about it, and it comes up. Everyone knows that one. But we don't apply it to other places. And even in philosophy. I mean, philosophy used to be, Western philosophy used to be just very, very highly respected until some philosopher, after I left and became a monk, they said, I forget who it was, they finally proved without a shadow of a doubt, no one's been able to refute this proof, that you can't prove anything. Basically, the end of philosophy. Nothing can be proved. And prove that. But anyway, it just showed just what a waste of time all that thinking was. What a waste of time all that thinking was. So why do you do it? So one of the reasons is because we're not used to anything else. We're not used to silence. So how can you get some silence in the mind? I already gave that nice little trick yesterday about listening to the space between words. And if you want to learn how to do that even more effectively, look for the spaces between things. When you come into this hall, don't look at who's here. Just look at who's not here, the spaces between people. What's not here? The emptiness, what's between people, what actually is things. It's just training your perception in a different way. When you look at a tree, don't look at the branches and the twigs and the leaves. Look at what's between the twigs, the empty spaces. When you look at Ajahn Brahm, don't just look at his belly, look what was in between his ears. Space, nothingness. So when you see the spaces between things, the emptiness, you're looking at a perception in a different way. Just the same as when somebody asked last night about someone who committed suicide, why is it we just focus on events, not what's between the events? What happened beforehand? What happened afterwards? That's one of the problems. We just focus on the things which really stand out, rather than what's between them, underneath them, behind them. So, when you train yourself to actually look at the spaces between things, the emptiness in things, the silence between things, then your perception starts to see something much more than just thoughts, events. It literally is reading between the lines of what you are writing down. What you're writing down on those books is just a fraction of what's on there. Just see if you see what's between the letters, between the lines, between the paragraphs, which is always much more than what you write down. That is where you find the silence. So, if you really want to, you can go and have a walk around the property. It's lovely weather now. Or you can do just what I was doing, I had 10 or 15 minutes. This is what I call the in-between moments of life. I finished my breakfast, had a shower, see if I could find somebody in the office, they weren't there. So wonderful, 10 or 15 minutes, go and sit by the stupas and just be stupid. Why did I say stupid? Because stupa, that's the adjective which is connected to stupas. So you can get there and just do nothing. I wasn't worshipping the Buddha. I wasn't just walking around doing a ceremony. I wasn't doing any chanting. I was just doing there, blanking out. No thoughts, just watching the trees. It's difficult to sit there doing nothing, because most of the times, actually the last retreat, there was many Indonesians here. Every time I sat still, click, 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 somebody was taking a photograph of me. It's true. Oh, come on, give me a break. But anyway, sitting on that stupa, doing nothing. The trouble is, if you're not thinking about something, people think you're stupid. There's nothing wrong with being stupid. Stupid people's rights, especially stupid nuns and stupid monks' rights. I'm proud to not think. So what we're doing there, so what are you doing that for? Why do you have to be doing something, a purpose? Why can't you just be there? Instead of, having to justify why you're sitting at the stupa. Were you meditating? Were you thinking about the talk you were going to give? Were you just planning this? Or what were you doing? Were you studying yourself to improve your tan? No, I was just sitting there. What were you doing though? Nothing. What do you mean doing nothing? This is the problem these days, that if you're at home, and for those of you who've got a garden in your home, maybe those who live over here, because maybe you've got gardens in the condos, but the condo gardens are great because you don't have to do anything with them. But if you're sitting at home, I remember this telling people years ago, spend more time in your garden. Why is it you spend so much time making a garden? And that's all you ever do there. Fix it up. And you have these beautiful houses. And you make it so comfortable. And as soon as you've got a chance, a long weekend, you're off on holiday somewhere. Why do you spend so much time making a beautiful house and garden if the first opportunity to enjoy it, you run away somewhere else? There is no place like home. So, when you have some free time, why do you go somewhere else? Recently, it was Ming. She was saying, Ajahn Brahm, but some other monks, sort of, they go taken on holiday. So, do you want to go on holiday somewhere? I said, okay, I'll go on holiday in my cave. But that's not a holiday, that's where you live every day. Precisely. Who wants to go on holiday somewhere? It's okay coming here because you get some peace and quiet. But if you have another 2 or 3 weeks holiday, where do you want to go? Do you want to go... do you want to go... Well, your dream holiday, where would it be? To Los Angeles? To meet movie stars? To see the Grand Canyon? To go and... Where else would you go? To go to an adventure holiday to North Korea? That'd be an adventure. But people have all these ideas of going on holiday. They know what it's like. You just go through the customs and go through the patting downs, and then you go over to wait for your aircraft, and then you have to squash in, and then you have to arrive late, and then you have to pick up your baggage, and then you don't know which terminal you're supposed to go to, and then you go somewhere else, and then you miss your flight, and then you arrive late, and you have to be in the queue, and then you can't find a taxi to take you to the airport, to the hotel. When you get to the hotel, you find it's just a really rotten hotel with lots of mosquitoes and bugs and really hot, and the aircon doesn't work, and the food is disgusting, and it's really noisy, so you can't get to sleep at night. And you know the drill. What do you do that for? One of my friends, Jeff in Cambridge, he said he went to a holiday in Club Med. I think it was somewhere in Greece or somewhere. So what did you do? And he gave him the list of stuff which he had to do. From the morning, breakfast, and then skiing, and then tennis, and then in the gym, and then yoga after lunch, and then there was activity every minute, and in the evening, disco dancing, whatever it is, till late at night. You should have been exhausted with that schedule. He said, yeah, we were. Glad to get home and take a rest and go to work. What on earth do people do that for? That's like thinking. We're so afraid of silence, we're not used to it. We just don't know how to rest anymore. We don't need to know how to do nothing. So, that's why when you go over there and sit on the stupa, what are you doing? Nothing. I'm relaxing, that's doing something. I am contemplating the nature of existence, that's doing something again. I'm meditating, that's doing something. But I must say that there's another reason those stupas are there. Those actually came from the rocks in central Java, Borobudur stone. And it's 108 times the size of the usual ones. 108 is supposed to be a good number. Don't know why, but there we go. So anyway, that when the monks, Venerable Sri Panyawaro, donated that for Jhana Grove, he told me the tradition. There's a little Buddha statue, beautiful Buddha statues inside. And the tradition is, if you can put your hand in one of those holes and actually touch the Buddha inside, then you will find true love. If I catch any of you doing that, I'm going to tell your partners back in Singapore. That's right, Henry, isn't it? You're an Indonesian. That's a tradition. Yeah. So keep your hands off the Buddha. Otherwise, I'm going to spill the beans. So anyway, so if you're in a garden at home, you've got a few hours, just sit down there and relax. So what do people think? Sit down and relax. What they do is they get an iPod, listen to Ajahn Brahm's talks or the news or some music. That is doing something. So they read a magazine or Dharma book. That's doing something. Just sit there and see if you can do nothing. So they sit there, the beautiful garden, just doing nothing. You know what happens next? They start planning. That needs mowing. There's too many weeds in the lawn around the stupas. They need to be fixed up. It'd be really good if we have a bit of a flower over there, maybe a pot plant, or maybe we could do something else over here. That's not relaxing, is it? So what we do, we learn how to just sit in a chair in the garden and say, even though the leaves need raking, even though the gutters are overflowing, even though all the plants are drooping because they haven't been watered, not now. I'm going to learn how to just let things be. Not thinking, not planning, not criticizing. With learning how to be peaceful, learning how to stop thinking. Thinking is solving problems, doing business. Silence is realizing there's no business needed to be done right now. You don't need to fix things up. They're good enough as they are. And the story which comes up, Ajahn Buddhadasa in Thailand, building his big hall. And those of you have you seen our gates as you go into Bodhinyana Monastery? Seen all those missing tiles in the front? So we had a gate crasher. It was true. A bus crashed into the gate. So I think it looks quite nice like that. And it's like, these days, I see young women come into the monastery and they've got all these holes in their jeans. And they're really expensive. So it's a fashionable gate. We've got holes in the gate. Holy gate, yeah. So anyway. So people think, are you going to fix it? What do you mean? Fix it? It's good enough, isn't it? Is it? Why does it have to be fixed? Because we have all these ideas of what perfection is and what not perfection is. So anyway, this Mark Ajahn Buddhadasa, finishing his hall off, come to the range retreat, right, that's it, no work. Finished. Sent all the builders home. And what happened next is someone visited and said, when are you going to finish your hall? And famously he said, the Dhamma hall is finished. What do you mean? You're going to leave it like that? With all the cement bags all over the place? No windows, glass in the windows, no roof on? Are you going to leave it like that? Fortunately, that Thailand, in its monasteries, they didn't have any building inspectors, health and safety officers, any regulations. Otherwise, he'd been put in jail. But anyway, they didn't have any big rules like that. So he just said, no, we'll leave it as it is for 3 months. And he famously said, what's done is finished. And he went off to meditate. Be peaceful, don't need to think or do anything. What's done is finished. So, all of your stuff which you're going to do, which you think about, which you plan, what's done is finished. Have a break. If you don't know how to do that, you'll be thinking every minute of your life, as the Buddha said, like the ant hill which is on fire during the day. This is the ant hill up here. All these little ants moving about, all the neurons firing. That's the ant hill. And fire it up during the day and smoking at night. Still sort of thinking, subconsciously dreaming, worrying. That's the ant hill simile. So we just change that thinking by having other perceptions. The perception of perfection is not getting things done. Your life is always work in process. Bodhinyana Monastery, over there. Is that 34 years now, something like that? You know, it's still not finished. It never will be. Anukampa Bhikkhuni Monastery. When will that be finished? Never. It will always be work in progress. Your job, your business, your family, it's always work in process. Nothing ever gets finished. There's always something else to do afterwards. It rolls on, samsara. So what we do is we take time off the wheel from time to time. Retreats. So now's the time to be irresponsible. Not even need to think about all the problems and difficulties in your life. Let it go. Can you be irresponsible? Can you? Don't think about it, just do it. It's amazing that we think too much. That other little story, which is incredibly powerful. The old time when Ajahn Chah was brilliant, because he actually did give long talks. They were the boring stuff, but every now and again he'd actually just come out with one-liners when you were doing something, and he would just give a little just new perspective which changed everything. Just like I said yesterday about, it's not the sound disturbs you, you disturb the sound. Never really understood that before, but it's so true. It's not the body disturbs you, you disturb the body. It's the body just doing what the body does. It's not the heat disturbs you, you disturb the temperature. It's hot, it's cold, life. So don't worry about it. Don't think about it. And it's much more peaceful. So anyway, this particular one, building his hall, another building hall simile. You've probably all heard this one, but it's a great one. He, with lots of earth left over, and so we had to move it. You know, monks are like that, or senior monks. Instead of actually, paying money to somebody who moves it with a machine, when you got all the free labour, slaves you might call them, all these young monks, we have to do it. So, 3 days of hard work, moving the earth. And from one meal a day, I've already told you what we ate, big ball of sticky rice and one skinny frog. That's not enough, to give you energy, working all the day from about 9:30 until about the same time at night. And only during the day, just for maybe a Coca-Cola or one Pepsi or something, just to rehydrate you. Really hard work. And honestly, if you saw photographs of me in those days, you would not recognize me. I was so skinny, all bones. Was this the Ajahn Brahm we know today? Yeah, that was. So I did my skinny stuff early on in my life. Now doing my fat stuff. So it's just balancing, that's all. It's just middle way, balancing. But it's really hard work, and it's in the jungles with mosquitoes biting you, buzz, buzz, buzz. And those mosquitoes, they took advantage because you were monks, and they knew that you can't swat them. I was going to say something, bad word, but I can't. But anyway, so those sadistic mosquitoes, sweating, working really hard, getting really dirty. By the time you finished in the evening, you used to get these lanterns out so you could work really late. You were just so tired. Even didn't have enough time for a shower, just went back and fell asleep. 3 o'clock, ding, 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 morning chanting. Oh, that's hard work. But it was good karma. You're building a hall for Ajahn Chah. You were part of it. Oh, you got so inspired. up to a point. After 3 days we finished. And I thought, oh great, now I can just relax. And just the following day, do some meditation, have a good shower, cool off. And you know what happened? This is the trouble with thinking, and especially planning the future. What you expect to happen hardly ever does. Something else happens, just to make life interesting. And just show how all your plans were just so stupid. Next morning, Ajahn Chah had left, gone to another monastery. You know, like, no, I have to leave every now and again, go to England, go to Thailand, go to Singapore, whatever. And he left, and Ajahn Liam was in charge. And he said, after breakfast, we put the earth in the wrong place. It should go over here instead of where we put it. And, you know, I could understand that, you know, it just didn't look good where it was. Another 3 days of hard work. Bitten to death by mosquitoes, sweating, dirty, stinky, and just really working hard. And after 3 days, we finished it. 6 days of just hard labor, just day after day after day. And then, but it was in the right place now. And that night, Ajahn Chah came back. In the morning, he called us all together, and he said, I told you to put the earth over there. Now it's over the other place. Why do you do that? Move it back. Have you ever had a boss like that? There comes a time, even if you're a monk, you lose your faith. Because Ajahn Lim and Ajahn Chah, they never needed to push a wheelbarrow. They just told us to do it. Can't they decide beforehand where they want that earth to be put instead of putting us all? I never became a monk to be a labourer. You know, I was a theoretical physicist. I should be inventing stuff, finding the secrets of the universe, not pushing a blooming barrow and mosquitoes. Can't we have some repellent or something? And I got very upset. And you try not to show it. But honestly, if you're upset, you know, you can't hide it. And that's where one of the monks came up to me. They saw my body language was just so upset. And so he came up and said, Ajahn Brahm, pushing the wheelbarrow is easy. Thinking about it is the hard part. That monk, thank you wherever you are. What brilliant Dhamma. Not Four Noble Truths and stuff we do in the afternoon. This is the real stuff which actually works. Well, that's real stuff as well, but this is the stuff which everyone, you know, can actually do. It was so true. When I stopped complaining and thinking about it, it was just so easy. And those days went, it was good fun. Yeah, we were dirty and smelly, but everyone was. So it didn't really make much difference. And you were tired, but everyone was, so we had fun and games. Every now and again, I remember just shoveling the earth, and you know, I was tired when I threw it over one of the monks. But it came back to me afterwards. Have races, who get there first. So messing about, making it fun instead of complaining. And those 3 days went perfectly, so fast when you weren't complaining. When you weren't thinking about it. By that night, Ajahn Chah said, okay, that's it, finished. Thank goodness for that. But that was what we learned. Thinking about it is the hard part in life. Doing it is just so easy. Building a monastery, a nun's monastery in England. If you think about it, it's impossible. It will drive you insane, crazy. But you don't need to think about it, just do it. What else have you got to do in your life? Get a new job, have a cancer operation, a biopsy, or even like dying. Dying is such an easy thing to do. Just don't think about it. That's true, isn't it? Thinking about it is a problem. Doing it is easy. You've all died many, many times. You know, you're Buddhists. You reincarnate. So you're the experts. You've got experience. I really feel sorry for the Christians who only die once. You know, they could have got no experience. That's only a joke, please. Please don't crucify me for that or put me in some jail. So, thinking about it's a problem. So, what I've done there is shown you just to take away the importance of thinking, to downplay it. Because we're in a culture where great thinkers are praised and silent sages are just ignored. And you want to change that around. Thinking, that's what causes all the arguments. Silence causes harmony and love and peace. So, how can we do that? Number one, not just change perceptions of spaces between people, also learn how to, while you're on this retreat, to actually to be without going anywhere. Not having goals. As soon as you have a goal, some place you want to go, somewhere you have to achieve, you have to get to the airport in a few days' time. Now you've got to think about how I'm going to get there. And just, when you have a goal, there's all sorts of problems. But in just being here, you don't have to think about that. You're already here. So see if you can start to just be here rather than go somewhere. Not have all these goals, things you have to achieve. And then because, how do I achieve them? Thinking is the business of life. And here, no business. Just be. It is a rest. So that's one of the reasons when that friend of mine said how busy that Club Med was. I said, that is not Club Med. This is Club Med. Club meditation, serpentine. You haven't heard that one before? Cracky. It's really good teaching sort of new people or old people. The new people haven't heard the old jokes before, and the old people, they have heard them before, but they've forgotten because they're old. So both ways I win. Just young people who keep coming again and again, they're the problem. They know the old jokes. But anyway, Club, this is actually learning how to enjoy this moment. No business, peace, freedom, relaxation, a real holiday. We don't have to do anything. You can just be. And after a while, your thinking starts to stop. It's got nothing to feed it. No measuring, no business, no attainments. And there's many ways you can learn how to appreciate the space between the thoughts. Those in-between moments of life when there's no business to be done. One of the great ways is just really getting your senses attuned to what you're seeing or what you're hearing, what you're smelling. Nature. It's one of the reasons why we built this retreat center in this spot here. If you have like an aerial view, it's like a little island in a forest, a clearing. So it's very, very peaceful. And there's so much beautiful nature goes on here. So you can just go out and find a tree. Explore it. Have a walk and listen. Listen to the sound of the birds. Or the sound of the wind in the trees. If it does rain, then go out, do not take an umbrella. Go out and get your hair wet. Don't insulate yourself from the nature. You won't get sick. Just get wet, just like when you were a kid. Remember when you were a child, you'd get really wet, your mum would complain, get really dirty, jump in the puddles, get mud all over your clothes. We've got plenty of washing powder over there in the laundry. Feel. Experience. Come into life. It stops you thinking about life. I forget where I left this little cartoon. There was a cartoonist in Melbourne called Lunig. He's one of my favourite cartoonists. He's really popular in Australia. And one of his cartoons, there was a family. The left of the, only a single frame cartoon, the left of the frame, the family were watching the TV. It must have been a nature program, because a beautiful picture of a sunset on the TV. And the right-hand side of the picture showed the window in the house, where outside the sunset was actually happening. Or just like you see, I don't know how many times I've seen this, usually in airports, two people SMSing each other, and they're just sitting next to each other. It's crazy stuff what people do these days. They're just not real anymore. Reality is actually quite quietening, quite peaceful, especially here. So just go outside and don't have a plan of where you're going to go. Just listen. Get your senses open. Not thinking about the world or thinking about what you're hearing, but experiencing it, feeling it. It's wonderful. We had a conference here a couple of years ago, one of the global conferences, and one of the presenters there was a psychologist from Sydney. And I just thought, this guy is, I shouldn't really say, but he's smart, but it's just like a bit of a scam, because he started nature therapy. So all these expensive people over in Sydney, I hope this guy's not here. He was, all his expensive clients over in Sydney who were just stressed out, depressed or whatever, he wouldn't actually give them any medication. He'd just put them in his car and drive them out, to the beach, to the forest, to the cliffs, and go for a walk with them, spend all afternoon walking through the beautiful parts of nature and drive them back home again and charge them a couple of $1,000s each. That's a nice little learner. And he was very successful, simply because all those problems and thinkings and stuff, they were taking them out into nature so they could actually feel, and they could see, and they could get wet. They became alive, taken out of the world of thinking, which had gone berserk, and into the world of experience and feeling. And that was incredibly powerful. But I like undermining people's businesses. So you can do it here for free. We won't charge you. It all comes with the fees you paid for this retreat. The forest, we will not charge you any extra for actually just to going walking in it. If you find a little pond or a little river, jump in it. Splash. Get yourself all wet. In other words, you become alive again. You're here, experiencing what's happening. Why have you all got socks on? Have you got smelly feet or something? Thank you haven't got socks on. So when you go back to your rooms or come out, take your socks off. It's incredibly clean, this jhana grove. And just walk on the concrete. Feel it. Feel the different sensation of the concrete and the wood and the grass. You feel it. And you become aware, mindful, not in the world of thought, but in the world of experiencing. You are undermining the power of thought in your mind. We have our walking meditation paths. 1, 2, 3. In those walking meditation paths, you'll find there are red carpets. Well, sometimes orange, but it's red enough. That is why we praise walking meditation. Red carpet treatment for you all. And the reason we put those carpets that way, because, you know what people are. We're trying to get as many people in there as possible. And then before we put those carpets in, somebody started one corner to the other corner, backwards and forwards, so no one else could walk in there. So when we put them in there, the other part of the concrete is a bit hard, so it's really comfortable. Walk on it's like yoga mats in there, and you feel your feet. Feel it as much as possible. Your socks off and just feel just what it's like. Just to walk and feel the sensation in your feet. Feel as you lift your foot up. If anyone has ever had a stroke or had to learn how to walk again, then it's an incredibly complex process, which now you take for granted. Are you aware of what it means to walk? You move forward, you take the weight off one foot and move the foot up and just walk it forward. How do you walk? Does your foot go straight up and then across and down again? What's its trajectory through space? What part of your foot leaves the ground first? What touches it last of all? What does it feel like? So we don't go walking back, thinking about the nature of non-self and whether, or how can there be reincarnation without a self and all that sort of thinking, Gomayang. Instead, we just feel, become alive. And it's a beautiful thing when instead of thinking about life, we experience life. And that means that when you come and sit down, you don't go thinking about what you should be doing. You don't go through all your old business you're supposed to do, all the things you're going to have to do later on. You don't go thinking at all, and worrying, and getting anxious, and sleepless, or lustful. You don't think at all. You're just there, enjoying this moment, being here, but not going anywhere. Spend our whole life going anywhere, going someplace. So that's why they say, Ajahn Brahm, he's going places. I'm not going anywhere. Even when you get in an aircraft, I tell people, I do not fly from country to country. When I travel anywhere, I don't travel at all. I just get on the aircraft, I sit down on my seat, the plane is what moves. I just stay still. I don't move. I sit down there, and that's it. Different perceptions, isn't it? You're not going anywhere. When the plane lands, I'm back again. Here I am. Do you live in Singapore? Of course you don't. You're in Perth. You wake up, here I am. Same sort of thing. So anyway, this is where we learn how to don't go places, be here. Don't just do something. Sit here. Learn how to let things be. Learn how to be, and don't try and do nothing. That's more doing. There's just nothing doing. And then the mind gets very peaceful. You don't need to measure. You will not get grades after this retreat. I will not say that you are a stream winner, you are a once returner. I've got to tell this story. True stories. You know, there are monks and lay people, real scallywags, who they go and tell people that you are a stream winner, you are a non-returner, and they give people these certificates. And what's this? I told this by a Sri Lankan man over in San Francisco, and he'd just been over there and heard this story himself. There was an old lady, lived in the backwaters of Sri Lanka, up in the countryside somewhere, and a very devoted Buddhist, going to the temple, offering food to the monks and nuns and stuff like that. And when she visited her family in Colombo, who'd gone to universities and got businesses and felt very conceited and proud about what they'd have achieved, and they saw their old grandma, auntie, and said, what can we do for her? There's something which will show a little bit of gratitude for all she's done for us. And they knew she was a devoted Buddhist. And so there was a little centre there, just on the edge of Colombo. And there you would meditate and you would study and, with a lot more support than you get here. But at the end of the retreat for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you get an exam to see if you really understood the Dhamma. And they'll be checking your meditation at interviews and taking notes, making sure and see how far you've gone in your meditation. And on the basis, of that theory and practice, then the board of examiners would discuss you, and then if they really agreed, then they would say, okay, she's a stream winner, Sotapanna. So on in Sri Lanka. A once returner, a non-returner. And so they sent this woman to this retreat. She did really well. So well that at the end of the retreat they came to her and said, Grandma, Auntie, we're very, very pleased we've all agreed that you are a stream winner. You are one of the Aryans. Congratulations. And they handed her this stream winning certificate. At which point she got very upset and angry. And they couldn't believe, why are you getting angry and upset? You're a stream winner, you're never going to go to hell, no lower realms anymore. You're on the path to enlightenment. Why are you upset? And she looked at them. And the way only an old grandma can look at you. And said, you don't remember me, do you? No. I was here about 3 years ago and you gave me a non-returner certificate. I've been demoted. That's what happens when you measure people. You get it wrong. And that scam soon folded when the news got out. So no measuring. So you don't need to think about anything. Just learn how to be still and peaceful. Now, I've got 2 minutes to say the most important things. I actually probably play it much longer. So, sometimes though, we get caught up in our thoughts and fantasies and memories and dreams. And this is that simile of the TV, or no, the movie, or for the men, the football match. Because this actually came about when I was in Changi Airport, Terminal 3, was going past from one gate to another gate, and they have in the middle of there, they have this big, huge screen with sports on it. No, football, usually soccer. And then I went past there and I saw this guy just yelling out, "That was not offside, referee. That was not offside. That was a goal." Screaming at the, or something like that, screaming at the TV screen. And I thought, doesn't matter how loud he screams. That match happened in Liverpool. You're in Changi Airport. And also, it was a replay. And it reminded me of some of my own experiences. When I was a student, we took our girlfriends to see West Side Story. Romeo and Juliet set in the Bronx or Queens or somewhere in New York. And if any of you remember that story, it was Tony from an Italian background, and Maria, I think she was Puerto Rican. And 2 different gangs, basically, and just forbidden love. And, love stories, what happens, always end up the same way. You don't really need to watch them, you can actually just get to the back end there, oh yeah, I thought that might happen. You get to such a long way until the inevitable happens. And anyway, because it's based on Romeo and Juliet, it was a tragedy. So in the end, something happened and Tony was in trouble with Maria's brother or something, and Maria's brother had a gun and Maria was trying to warn Tony. And finally, she managed to see Tony before her brother did. He was under a lamppost and she screamed out to him, "Look out, someone's coming to you with a gun or something." And at that moment, Maria's brother saw Tony and shot him. And Maria ran up to Tony under the lamppost in the rain in the West Side poor area. And they hugged as he died in Maria's arms. And I've been to New York. I don't know how this could happen, but there was an orchestra somewhere there. And they started playing, "There's a place for us, somewhere, a place and time for us." And there's about 3 of us guys there and 3 girlfriends. And those girlfriends, they started weeping. They were crying and crying and crying and crying. And I couldn't understand it. What are you crying for? Is that in a movie? She's not really dead. And anyway, if you don't believe in reincarnation, Just wait for half an hour and the show gets gets replayed. What's the big deal? And that's not just saying that just to downplay soccer idiots or people who get into movies. Why do you get drawn in? Because then I started thinking about, actually what happens is that guy in Changi Airport gets so drawn in to what he sees on the screen, he actually psychologically believes he's at Anfield in the stands watching it happen. Otherwise he wouldn't be shouting out at the referee. You get drawn in. You're actually in what's being played, in the sports match. You're there. Same way as when you're in a movie. You're watching a movie, and actually you're right in the set. It draws you in, which means you get emotionally entangled. And that was a nice little insight, because the antidote to that is you're watching a movie, just hold on to the seat. I'm on the seat. I'm not in a spacecraft which is exploding. I'm in Jhana Grove. It's not the same. Sports match, I'm not in the stand. I might as well shut up and be quiet because no one can hear me. But when you get drawn in to your thoughts, then those thoughts become so important. Your fantasies and dreams, you're right inside of them, even though they're off in the future somewhere. It's not real. Any thoughts about the future, fears, anxieties, I call them sci-fi. They're not real. Any thoughts about the past, they are replays of old movies. Old stuff, it's not real. So if you can just imagine yourself just moving back a little bit, moving back a bit from the thoughts and the fantasies, the anxieties, just separating yourself slightly, putting some space, imagining space, distance between you and those thoughts. And then you look at them from a distance, and it's so easy. Because you're not entangled in them, you're not emotionally involved, you can walk past that soccer match. You could it's just a movie. No one's getting hurt, it's not the end of the world. It's not anything important, just two actors. You see all the blood and gore, it's just tomato ketchup, as my mother used to say in the old days. It's not real, just special effects, that's all. So you don't get emotionally involved, you can actually let go. And when you let go, put distance between you and what you're watching in your world of thought. It's amazing how quickly all those thoughts have no meaning anymore. And how you've been sucked in to what it's really like, pulp fiction, trash novels, stupid sci-fi, not real. And the silence, being here, that's the real world. So get real. Not in the world of thinking, in the world of experiencing. Change perceptions, and then you'll never get caught up in thoughts again, unless you do so deliberately. Just really in the lay world, you just want a bit of time out, so you just go and watch some stupid Harry Potter or something. You know what's going to happen in the end. In most of the movies, the good guys win, or the good girls win. Very rare that they don't. If they don't win in this one, there's always a sequel where they do. Well, anyway, so don't get sucked in. Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Okie dokie.